I'm sorry about that. I'm kind of like the Fed. Keep making the same choices and expecting different results. Sorry about that. Now I lost my page. Yeah. I know, I'm getting there. I and several students were invited to the Yellow Party. Yellow means ownership of X number of shares or more owned in Berkshire Hathaway's world. So many party is full of very, very rich people. Later, while at the said party, which by the way was pretty cool, Mr. Buffett arrived with his team of security. We lined up to meet him. As I was walking along waiting for my turn to meet Mr. Buffett, I was thinking, what would I say to get him to react? I knew he was a baseball nut, like I am. I am baseball crazy and always have been. So when it was my turn, I said to Mr. Buffett, "You know what I say about you having a bad year, 1999 to 2000, one of the few bad years he ever had." He responded in an angry tone. "What does that mean?" I said even Babe Ruth had slumps, and walked away to Dr. Madsen, his students and 2 children. Dr. Madsen said, "What did you say to him?" I told Dr. Madsen what I said. Then he said, "Mr. Buffett's face lit up. He is waving you back." So I looked over at Mr. Buffett and he waved me back over. So I walked back over and he put his arm around me and he smiled, as did I, and everyone took pictures. I loved it. It was like my D-Day Uncle Harold, who has always reminded me of Buffett in his looks and humor, saying "good job," which growing up on Normandy Beach, Battle of the Bulge, large intimidating role model, meant more than most can ever imagine. Dr. Madsen had a said photo hanging on the wall in his office. I've always wondered what happened to it and if Mr. Buffett remembers that comment of mine. I doubt it, but I sure do. Dr. Madsen and I were very close. I helped him teach the derivatives portion of Dr. Cooley's finance classes. On Dr. Madsen's request, after Dr. Cooley's tragic death, Dr. Cooley and I had become very close as well. While Dr. Madsen was fighting for his life, he tried to continue teaching. He failed, and as bad luck or fate have it, I had a terrible accident falling off a roof over 30 feet on concrete, and I was fighting in intensive care for my life as Dr. Madsen lost his. Spring of '05, I fell in March and he died in April. The scar. It was a horrible accident, falling off a roof over 30 feet. I was fighting intensive care as Dr. Madsen lost his life, 2005 in April. I did not get to attend his funeral or visit him, as his wife and children had people over to his home to say goodbye in the final days. I wish I could have told him how much I respected him and what he meant to me. As Dr. Cooley, I never got to say goodbye to him at the end. I did hold my father's hand as he died so tragically just 2 months after Dr. Cooley's sudden death. I stood there as they loaded my father's body in the body bag, January 11, 2000, knowing my life was radically going to change. I felt it, I knew it. Just 59 days later, my life changed financially as it had emotionally radically. March 10, 2000, the day the market peaked, the day of the Palm IPO. Later chapters. I'll be writing about 1999 to 2000, the Palm 3-comp smartphone pioneer nightmare, and the horrible tragic death of my father, the legendary finance professor Dwight Cooley, and the horrible young death of Dr. Kyle Madsen. Also, I have a future chapter in this book on the 3-comp Palm IPO that just happened to be the exact capitulation of the technology revolution. March 10th, 2000, the day the NASDAQ capitulated at over 5,000. I also have a future chapter on one of the 2 great technology inventions in the past century, both coming from my home, Utah. The television, Philo Farnsworth, the operating system, WordPerfect, invented at BYU. How much economically Washington State gained via the 1995 theft of the operating system by Gates and or Microsoft. Remember Shift F7? That is the name of my study. It is in a future chapter, Shift F13. I have written extensively of the late 90s atmosphere in the context of culture and the technology revolution and the Clintons Fed. And my favorite chapter in this book, The Blowjob That Changed the World. Dr. Clyde Cooley, he had been the force that gave our school a graduate program in 1998, MBA. I came back to Weber for the sole reason to get the first MBA from Dr. Cooley. I knew it would be the feather. I could go anywhere I want in the finance world. I could come home, would check with the School of Business MBA secretary every day and say, "Still no last name starting with the letter A yet?" "No, Kev, you are still on the top of the list," she would say. And She and I went way back. After all, was who kept the program in line. One day as I was in my final semester, 1996, a few of the 27 grads in our program that year were standing in the office. She said, "Can you believe I have found a student who thinks he could pull off taking two classes in the exact same time of day in classrooms right next to each other while taking Clyde's 440 class?" Well, I said, "Who would try pulling that off?" She winked at me and said, "I wonder." When I graduated in '96, there was a large hedge fund interviewing for a large, good position, over 300 applicants. Dr. Cooley set up the interview. I walked in the interview, and the interviewer said, "You have 3 minutes to tell me why I should hire you." I said in my young, arrogant voice, I need only a few seconds." He said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yes, let's hear it," he said. "I have the ability to make money out of any place or any time, regardless of the situation." He paused for a time and said, "Is that it?" I said, "Yes, sir, that is it." I had a very successful plaster and stucco business at the time, Blanch plastering, that I'd built up for 20 years. And I'd been working in the hedge fund industry and the trading industry for well over 20 years. It was nothing new to me. I just had finished my degree. So I did not really care if I got the job or not. The interview said, "You are hired. Can you start tomorrow?" "Yes, sir. Why not?" I said. I walked out of there with my young, arrogant mind thinking, wow, was he impressed? Of course, a few weeks later, I learned that Dr. Cooley's letter of recommendation and the phone call was the reason I was hired, and the arrogant response of mine almost blew the whole thing. It was a giant position. It was a great position. I excelled less than 4 very short years later. It all came crumbling down. And I meant crumbling down. When I was a teenager, my favorite song was Landslide, Fleetwood Mac, and every time I heard it, very large, vibrant presence would take my mind. I knew it meant something big. Another of my favorite subjects, the young subconscious and how it speaks the future to you if you listen. The true last frontier, the young mind. Boy, did the Landslide bring me down. From a very arrogant self-made millionaire with a very beautiful wife and family, 2 very successful businesses, an award-winning environmental art home, to nothing in one crazy moment. May the landslide bring me down. Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac, boy it did. I will never forget walking into the first day of 1999 class and expecting to see Clyde. And there was Dr. Madsen. I have the last letter of recommendation Dr. Clyde Cooley ever wrote. I said, "Where is Dr. Cooley?" He said, "Have you not heard?" I knew right then those words were uttered that he was either dead or close to it. He was brilliant, to some say it was mad cow for real. Who knows? The most brilliant mind I ever known to this day, his magnificent brain was under attack. Back to Greenspan's part in all this. At the time, as many investors know, there was a debate on interest rates. Things had been heating up over the past few years, and the raging equities price coupled with the very low inflation as to oil, gold, and the dollar were starting to end. How rich were we in the 90s? Oil $15 a barrel. Gold $2.75 an ounce, median price of a house $155, a gallon of gasoline $1.34, the euro 80 cents to the dollar, NASDAQ over 5,000, the Dow north of 10,000, the S&P north of 1450. The answer, rich, very rich. In April of 2000, I was sure that Greenspan needed to do his job and raise interest rates. That are truly the only job the Fed has to control inflation. Inflation was starting to move. You could smell it, taste it. Good traders, I believe I was, the first to sense trends. It is what a good derivative trader does, hypothesize forward. I had unbelievable success as a derivative trader for 20 years by being able to sense and hypothesize forward culture and financial trends. I still have that. I still make a living doing just that. I was telling all my trading co-workers they have to raise quickly and aggressively. In theory, looking back, I was correct. In reality, which is all that counts, I was wrong. He lowered when I was sure he would raise. I built a credible reputation forecasting weeks in front of Fed moves, and had made a career and large amounts of money being right in regard to the Fed. This was the first time I was dead wrong in my 20-year derivative career. I went off for the next few months saying this is wrong to anyone who would listen. The great Ayn Rander, the free market guy, is using Keynesian economics in regard to government intervention in a complete new and strange economic practice. He was lording when the bond market was floating up, telling everyone on earth that inflation was coming fast. He was doing exactly what all economists are schooled to do, the opposite, in literal Fed-written agenda, literally changing the charter of the Fed. I was appalled. Then, of course, his empowerment via the theft of the 2000 election. Let this be known in the context of this book and the neo-ignorance movement. This event, the Bush stealing the election, in the single most destructive thing that has ever happened to this country ever. The Monica blowjob will go down in history as one of the modern day's most cultural and financial changing events in world history. He did not win. The implications of this result of the incredible theft. It is all that our world is today, and if it not for the blowjob, it would never have happened close enough for this theft to take place. The theft of the election, and more importantly, the United States Supreme Court's ruling, I believe, to the biggest abuse of United States constitutional founding father structure in U.S. history by far. The photo of Chief Justice Byers, I believe, to be the most important piece of art in the last 40 years, and maybe ever. As far as the American goes, it is Waterloo, it is Gettysburg, it is reverse Magna Carta. And if you say it is way over the top, think of this. How many lives were lost or altered negatively by Iraq? The Supreme Court ruling allowing the nightmare to begin. Look at the Electoral College was put in place to give individual states power in regard to the presidential election. The Florida Supreme Court just that. The U.S. Supreme Court 5-4. It is the bust in a lie. What is the old joke? How many votes does it take to be president of the United States? 6. 5 Supreme Court justices and your daddy who put them there. How Thomas sleeps with himself is an enigma to me. That man a Supreme Court justice? Wow, what a commentary on the neo-ignorance time, 1980 to present. All the networks who said to redo the way we call election because 2000 was wrong, they had it right. We need to redo the way we think as Americans. Far-right news and a 10-second soundbite. That is who we are. We are stupid, we are lazy, we are ignorant, we are weak. We allowed for Bush's cousin at Kool-Aid News to step in. We allowed the courts to use pure 5-4 partnership. It is like this. I get so outraged every time I see a yellow sticker on a car making everything all right. We can justify anything in this country by the smallest of mind games on ourselves. The mass slaughter of people in our culture, the deaths of thousands of soldiers and legs blown off, tens of thousands of soldiers, the $30 trillion it costs, all set in motion by a blowjob. All this based upon a lie, a gigantic theft, and all this is all because I have a yellow sticker on my car. How pathetic is this country for real? How neo-ignorant is this country? As my father was marching in the desert, drafted Marine, father dropped a nuclear bomb on him, and 40,000 of them from 1951 to 1968. Atomic veterans. You tell me how that is not premeditated murder. You tell me killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people who did nothing to you is somehow a Christian act. Remember George W. Bush used the word crusade twice, shortly after the September tragedy. Remember he was an ex-cocaine and alcoholic addict. If any of you have ever been to a 12-step meeting, AA, NA, GA, Sex A, whatever fucking A. You know where I'm going. They all go from one extreme to the Lord extreme. That is exactly what W did. Look, what I'm saying, his father was a good man, which he is, and was a very good man and honor in his soul. He did not slaughter Iraq for nothing. He had seen war. Remember, he was shot down in WW2. He, to this day, is my favorite leader as far as the man goes in my life. He and his wife had compassion, even if you do not agree with him, which I did not on almost every issue. But I very much respected him. And remember this, he did not agree with Reagan. Another reason I liked him. Reagan is a cultural fallacy. He did not do anything. Right for the matter, he did nothing, literally. He would admit to falling asleep regularly in the Situation Room. He did go to the astrologer for advice. He was a hands-off president that loved to spend. George H. Bush was completely opposite of him in so many ways. When W stole the election, I thought so many. We will be okay. He is a moderate. Like his dad. After all, he had the same name. Boy, was I wrong. When he ran, he was for comprehensive immigration reform. He was pretty well for everything Clinton was. Of course, Clinton was a Republican in more ways than not. The reality to all this is plain. Ignorance and hate is bred by two. The male provides the hate. Rove, Bremer, Wolfowitz, Cheney. The female allows the male to breed her via ignorance and passionate arguments. The American popular opinion. The pregnancy is an unwanted child with a mother who is overweight, high, and drunk every day, all through the pregnancy. The belief in a yellow ribbon. The lazy, poorly educated geographical argument. And the racist view of ages, 1946 to 1971. That turned into the racist view of Middle Easterns. The pure lazy mother and aggressive ignorant father have created the new, even more ignorant child. The American popular opinion, born not from love, born from angry sex in a crack house. The child has been born, it has a small brain, it is addicted to anything it looks at. It is obese, it is lazy, and it knows no other way. The child is ours. Now the parents refuse to raise it. $35 trillion war. Lower taxes, lower taxes, lower taxes. There is no orphanage to send the little creep to. So we pass it around until one day American popular opinion sees its face and recognizes that it is the child they abandoned so long ago. They embrace the child and take the child in. And then the child in an angry rage kills the parents, us, American popular opinion, in our sleep. Chapter 3, the blowjob that changed the world.